Okay, Mr. Jordan Smith Reynolds in the house. Thank you for joining us on VERSED, the ASCAP podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
So, congratulations, first of all, on winning the Green Theme Song Contest presented by ASCAP Studio Green. Can you tell me why you decided to enter and what you did when you found out that you were the winner?
Sure. So I entered because I just felt like the song was a great fit. I'm glad that ASCAP felt so as well. That I'd written this song, What Every Plant Will Grow, about my daughters. We can get into that a bit as well. But I had written it and had released it about the same time this contest happened. So it just seemed fortuitous. It's like, oh, this is exactly on theme. So I'll give it a shot. As far as what I did when I found out, cried a little bit because I had actually just recorded another song, and I'm working with a producer and really happy with it. And actually, just actually the financial part of it was really helpful at that time, because I was expecting a sync deal to come through, but then the writer strike happened, and so that kind of impacted things. And I was like, how am I going to get this to work? Because I'm working on the song. I was going to pay the producer. What's going to happen? And it's like, it was just extremely helpful. It came at a very good moment.
Wow, so this really was the universe giving you a pat on the back.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, everybody loved it. I mean, everybody at ASCAP, but also the judging team. And, they were talking particularly about your vocal production. And, we have like some professional songwriter producers who were evaluating all of these winning songs. And I mean, for them to not only love the song as a song, but call out how pro it sounded, that's a lot. So I do want to get into that in a sec. But first, let's talk about this winning song, Whatever You Plant Will Grow. So you mentioned that it was inspired by your kids. Can you talk a little bit about the genesis of it first?
Yeah. This is coming off of my EP, The Deepest of Blues. I've released one single besides that EP. And that EP for me was really a pandemic EP. Where I think every artist at least has one pandemic song, just feeling the sadness and the apathy of that situation. And I wanted, with being a parent, I wanted to have a song that's more hopeful. And I was just thinking about what I want my daughters' lives to have in it, and what I want them to cherish, And so I think that's what led me to write this song, was just kind of refocusing after the pandemic and trying to find something positive.
That's beautiful. Have you played it for them?
Many times. Yeah. I actually have a huge extended family, and we just met for a family reunion, and they have like a family talent show night because there's like 60 something grandkids. And I went up there and I was playing the song, and my daughter Alice, who's 5, came up and was singing the song with me, and I didn't know she knew the words like fully, but yeah, it was very heartwarming. But yeah, she sang along every single word. Her plan was to dance, and then she got too scared, and so she sat next to me and sang along like every word, which was really cool.
So this song in particular, like it has a lot of natural themes in it. The idea of growth and planting and sowing, and of course there's a natural connection there. But you're not just talking about the physical act of farming. Clearly it's a metaphor for living. So, and like it strikes me that there's such an incredible balance in this song between just the concrete imagery and just this much more abstract theme that you're talking about. As a songwriter, can you tell me how you try and balance those things? Make it relatable, but and universal, but also like grounded in something real.
Yeah, it's funny because part of it, I think when I try to prescribe the balance, then I always like inevitably screw it up. But usually how I lean into that is I come up with images or an idea that really strikes me, and then kind of use that as my jumping point. But yeah, if it just has to be interesting to me first, and then I think I can kind of round it out with those more concrete ideas and flowing in a structure that makes sense for a song.
So do you remember like what that moment of clarity or that kernel of an idea that struck you was for this song in particular?
Yeah, I think for the concept, it was the idea of just everything we do has an impact, right? So both the positive and the negative, whatever we choose to focus our energy, our time and attention on, we'll see the fruits from that. So I think that idea was kind of the guiding star throughout the whole song. This song was difficult for me too, because I don't love songs that kind of like tell you what to do, you know? And this song like kind of toes the line a little bit for me. But I think it's universal enough that everyone can kind of latch onto the idea, and hopefully it doesn't feel too preachy that way.
You know, in that context, like I'm just thinking about, you know, being a parent myself and how you want to raise them to make the right decisions, not just tell them what decisions to make, right?
Exactly.
And it's such a hard balance to make, but like I think you get it really nicely in this song.
Thank you.
So an excellent didactic tool that I'm going to have to start using on my own kid.
Yeah.
So this is not the only Jordan Smith Reynolds song that uses generous amounts of nature metaphors. You frequently use seasons and rain and trees in your lyrics. What do you think makes those kinds of themes such fertile ground, pardon the pun, for songwriting?
I think there's just a magic about nature and a connection from a human to the world around them that really draws me into that imagery. I've been really lucky to go, explore a lot of, at least this country, a lot of the most beautiful spots that are around. One of my songs I wrote on my album or EP, Anywhere in the World, I wrote on a road trip from Boston to North Idaho down to California. And one of those moments was going to Niagara Falls. And that was like, obviously Niagara Falls is hyped, but it was like so stunning. And
it lives up to the hype.
It does. Yeah. So yeah, I think there's just this natural magic about being surrounded by nature and feel like you're a part of this environment.
I can totally empathize with that idea, but personally that would never like transform into wanting to go over Niagara Falls in a barrel.
Yeah.
That's like the stereotype or the thing you see in all the cartoons that happens at Niagara Falls, right?
Right. Yeah. No, I don't know if it would take me that far either.
So was that the trip where you ended up in California and like decided that's where you were going to live your life?
Mm-hmm.
So we were talking a little bit about this before, and I understand that there's actually an ASCAP story woven in there.
There is.
To tell me a little bit about how you ended up in California.
Okay. So I got my master's degree in vocal pedagogy, teaching of singing, and that was at New England Conservatory in Boston. And during that time, I was kind of deciding whether to go opera route, musical theater, pop songwriting. And I've always done songwriting along with all these things. And I had some time to reflect. And I used some of that time to go to the ASCAP Experience in 2019. I have some family that lives in California, so I was able to stay there and then go and check out the experience. And yeah, from the ASCAP Experience and from my time just thinking about it and having time outside of school, I went down the songwriting path and haven't looked back.
Talk to me about what it's like just completely uprooting, not just yourself, but your whole family, moving out here and like trying to find a new music community. Because it sounds like you were pretty well entrenched on the East Coast,
Mm-hmm.
with students, with probably fellow graduates and just other music makers. So yeah, what happens when you move to a new place and need to restart?
Well, it was terrifying for one, but I think going to places like ASCAP Experience was essential to getting the songwriting community that I was looking for. There's also a group, the Los Angeles Songwriters Collective and Song Club, that played a huge role for me as well to connect to what's going on around here. Mondays at Hotel Cafe, just all these little places and communities that it's all out there. What's nice is a lot of these communities are so inviting too, that it's easy to find collaborators and people that are as passionate about music as you are.
And I imagine you talk to a lot of those people as part of your weekly Song Saloon podcast. So tell me why you wanted to start that, but also like what kind of questions you're interested in asking your fellow songwriters.
Yeah. So I started the Song Saloon because, like many songwriters trying to find inspiration, I turned to the morning pages, which is the Artist's Way book. Has this morning pages. You write several pages every day without judgment, kind of just fill a page. And during that time, I felt really inspired to start a podcast. And I have done some podcasting before. I have a podcast called The Holistic Voice with a vocal performance major. And so at New England Conservatory. So we still do things together as well. But I started the Song Saloon because I'm fascinated by people, kind of how I'm fascinated by nature and everything. And I love the stories that they have to tell. And I love live performance. So with the Song Saloon, I kind of married those things, where I have the artist perform live, and then we talk about the song that they've chosen. So really it's the song that's featured more than the artist, but then I highlight the artist through the lens of the song. And we kind of dive into who they are as an artist, why they make the decisions they do.
You know, every songwriter has a different story, of course, and a different style, and you might love what they do. You might be indifferent to what they do. I found like everyone you talk to has something unique to offer, you know? Mm-hmm. Are there any takeaways that you've gotten from the podcasts you've done talking to other songwriters that have kind of stuck with you for a while?
Yes, the one that comes directly to mind is the one that I released 2 weeks ago with Althea, the artist. And Althea is a master at world building. And that is something that I found really differentiates songwriters and artists, right? And obviously you can be both. And being a songwriter of itself is an art, of course. But I think the world building is so essential, because a songwriter, you can write and tell stories about basically anything, right? But with an artist, you set rules and expectations almost. When you come to this space, you're going to feel this, or, you know, and I think it's so powerful to be able to set that up, and so essential as an artist to have, it's just a brand, right? To have a brand, a recognizable brand. And Althea is, she does a lot of, she's really into fantasy, and uses a lot of like building costumes by hand and all these cool things to showcase that part of her artistry. And it's made me think a lot. And that's not really my style to make outfits and things like that for what I do, but it's made me think a lot more about being intentional as an artist as well as a songwriter.
Yeah, I remember one of my best friends is a very deliberately down dresser, you know, lots of muted colors, no logos or pictures on his clothes. It's mostly like slacks and a t-shirt. And, you know, you can think of that as a non-costume or like a deliberate receding from attention or something, but it's just as much of a costume as what Althea is doing. You know, it's just, it's sending a message. It's just sending a very different message.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So like, has that made you think about your own brand, how you want to present yourself, or is it just sort of a,
Yeah, it has. It has made me think about my brand. And like we've talked about nature and kind of being out in quieter spaces, that's kind of that's that's what I want to lead people to, is to feel like they've that sense of wonder they get when they're out in nature, and that peace that comes from that. I think that's a big motivator for me in writing, is to kind of sort through the difficult, complex emotional lives that we have, and find that growth and understanding in quiet places. So a lot of my music ends up being that way, although I do, like any human, I have louder songs and I have different things, but that's kind of the focus. So yes, I haven't synthesized it enough to make active wardrobe decisions and things like that yet, but yes, it's in process.
Do you have a favorite outdoor space in Los Angeles yet?
In Los Angeles, I really love visiting, even though like maybe it's not fully like just nature, but I love like the Getty Villa and the Getty, like it's just gorgeous.
That totally involves nature.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, the site out in Malibu, just like overlooking the water, but also nestled in the mountains. The site itself is so important to the impact of that place, for sure.
Yeah.
Good choice. Since I promised we were going to, I wanted to talk about the recording of whatever you plant will grow.
Okay.
So you were mentioning earlier that there were several cooks in this kitchen, and contrary to the saying, it actually contributed a whole lot to have more people involved. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that, like just how that recording came to be?
Sure. So I started the recording process like I usually do, doing demos in my own space, and then everything I've released except for one song has always had some other producer kind of on it. I just love the collaboration aspect of that. And I started working with Mac Wright, who is a guitarist for Michael Barrow and the Taurus. It's an artist out in Utah. Really fantastic artist, and on his own solo work is very kind of like Americana heavy. And I wanted that flair, that flavor to this song. And so I reached out to him and we worked together and got some really good stuff, some banjo in there and guitar work and vocal arrangements and things. So did a lot of the vocal recording there at Mac's place. And then after that, I passed it on to Cody Francis, who has done a lot of my other past works, Deepest of Blues EP. And we added a lot of the filling in kind of like the synths and more kind of modern indie folk sounds that I really like, and I know he does really well. So I love the idea of co-producing. I think a lot of producers, it's hard to kind of relinquish that control. Thankfully, they're both really up for collaboration. So I was really happy with the result.
What is happening next? I mean, this single is only a few months old, but you've already released more music, and what's happening in the world of Jordan Smith Reynolds?
Yes. So the next thing, this was actually the first song I've released under the artist name Jordan Smith Reynolds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I used to go by Jordan Pratt. There's a songwriter in Nashville named Jordan Kyle Reynolds, who's released Tequila with Dan and Shay. And yes. So I've been confused. Whenever I've been confused with Jordan Reynolds, it's always been good for me. So, but because that was there, I wanted to have a name to kind of differentiate myself. Jordan Pratt, Pratt is a family friend of mine, and so I was like, that works and feels like a regular name, and that's what I wanted. But I switched to Jordan Smith Reynolds. Feels a little bit more genuine, and it just felt right. So I switched to Jordan Smith Reynolds, and now my next step is I have another single that has been cooking for a long time, and just finally I got that combination of lyrics and melody that just feels really right. And I've got it. The mix and master is done. Just got to get all the release stuff together, and that'll be out in a few months probably.
Fantastic. Well, we can't wait to hear it. But right now, would you be up for performing Whatever You Plant Will Grow for us in the studio?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Okay. Clear the field, stone by stone, digging for answers to questions unknown. Then shift the earth, plant the seed. You won't get all you want, but you'll have what you need. Oh, how the time has flown. On it goes. Before you can reap, you've got to sow. And whatever you plant will grow. Be it goodness or pain, kindness or shame, it'll find a way to grow. And the love that we hide, it withers and dies and muddies the soul. And whatever you plant will grow. So take the dreams from out of your head. Unless they see the sunlight, they're already dead. The rain will fall, the fire will burn, and at times we'll feel lost the more that you learn. Oh, how the time has flown. On it goes. Before you can reap, you gotta sow. And whatever you plant will grow. Be it goodness or pain, kindness or shame, it'll find a way to grow. And the love that we hide, it withers and dies and muddies the soul. And whatever you plant will grow. Clear the field, plant the seed. You won't get what you want, but you'll have what you need.
Huzzah.
Thanks.
That was glorious, man.
Thanks.